All right, so we're going to take notes on engineering and building with structural systems. So we've learned about different types of loads and we've learned about different types of forces that can act on structural systems. And now we are actually going to learn how and what goes into building different types of buildings and structures. So we're going to get started, and when I have you guys pause the video, you guys can type in your answers onto your interactive notes Google Slides. All right. So buildings have five main parts. They have a foundation, they have framework, decking, walls, and roofing. And over here on this cutout of a house, we can see that at the bottom, this is what we call the foundation. So the foundation is always at the bottom of a building or a house. The framework is kind of the skeleton of the actual house itself, so we call that the framework. The decking is whatever we're actually stepping on, so it's usually where our floors are. Walls, I think we all know what walls are, and roofing is obviously at the top of the house. That's our roof. So you guys can pause the video, you can drag and drop, and you can type in the five main parts. All right, so we're going to go into each part and talk about what they are and how they're built and where they are in an actual building. So the first one we're going to talk about is foundation. And foundation is a solid structure. The purpose of the foundation is to support the structure and to transfer the force of the load to the earth. So the foundation is what's actually attached to the ground. Sometimes it's actually kind of dug into the ground, and it's what's actually going to support the entire structure. You always want to have a very strong foundation when you are talking about building or engineering a different type of building. This is a picture of what a cross-section of a foundation looks like. So you can see that it kind of sticks into the ground and anchors the house to whatever it is on. And I want you guys to describe what the GIFs are. And so if you were to describe what's going on in this GIF, you would see that these people are pouring a foundation, and we can kind of see that they're pouring a concrete foundation. And like I said, the foundation is what's actually supporting the entire structure. So we want to see that it's very strong to transfer the force of the load to the earth. All right, there are two types of foundations. A shallow foundation is when the surface of the soil is firm and strong enough to support the load. So if the soil that is holding the foundation is very strong, you can make a shallow foundation. It doesn't have to go very deep. The other foundation is a deep foundation when the opposite is happening and we have very loose or soft soil. We would build a deep foundation to kind of anchor the house to the ground. And so these are cross sections of what two different foundations look like. So this one over here would be a shallow foundation, and this one over here would be a deep foundation. So you guys can pause, drag and drop, and type in your answers. Framework. Our next part of our building structures is framework. Framework is a skeletal structure. Like we saw, it kind of looks like the bones of the building. The purpose of framework is to provide an interconnected network of parts that provide support for the structure. So the interconnected network, like we saw, is kind of all the different slats of wood if we're talking about like a house. And again, they kind of act like the bones that hold the actual house up and give it support. This is a picture of what framework would look like if we were talking about building like an office building. And in this GIF, you guys can see that they're actually putting up different slats and kind of giving the house a frame. And so that would be considered framework. So again, you guys can pause, type it in. Frames can be made of a couple different things. They can be made of concrete, steel, or wood. And framework that you're going to build, it depends on, the material that you're going to use to build the framework depends on the cost and size or the use of the structure. Typically we see like our houses are built out of wood, but if we're talking about like a bridge or a big skyscraper, we might see that they're built with some kind of reinforced concrete or steel. Decking. So decking is considered to be a shell structure, so it's kind of sitting on top of the framework. The purpose of decking is to provide an area for storage and living space. So this is kind of a technical term for the floor, right? The floor is the area for storage and living space, and that's what we call decking. And you can kind of think of a deck, right? If you walk out on a deck, you're actually standing on kind of a floor. And it supports the weight of the live load. So again, this is where we live, this is where we have our furniture, and the decking is kind of underneath whatever type of floor we have. So if we have a carpet or hardwood or vinyl, laminate, whatever, underneath it is our big sheets of plywood that we will call decking. Sometimes they also call it subfloor. And in this video here, you can see they're laying out big pieces of plywood or subfloor, creating a living space for people to walk on, because you can't walk on the framework. You would fall right through. Okay, so you guys can describe what's happening here. They're laying out big sheets of plywood for decking. Decking can be made from wood, concrete, or brick. And it can also be made from marble. And again, it just depends on what you're actually building or what the purpose is. So decking utilizes the framework underneath to support the live load. So again, we're not acrobats, so we can't be walking around just on framework if we're living in a house or a building or walking on a bridge. We need some kind of decking to actually support the live load, whatever is living there or whatever furniture is there. Okay. And this is a picture, this is a picture of marble decking. All right, so a quick review. I want you guys to pause the video and I want you to label the picture. So you have, you have a couple different arrows, and I want you guys to drag the words to the arrows that are pointing to the correct spot on this building. So picture we are in like someone's basement. I'll give you a second to pause and do that. All right, so here we have our decking. Again, it's those big pieces of plywood that we are actually stepping on. Framework, we have our bones of the house, and our concrete foundation. Walls can also be considered a shell structure, kind of like decking. The purpose of walls is to enclose or divide a space and also provide support for the dead load of the roof. So again, if we didn't have walls, we'd be able to just kind of look through every single room in the house. We would see right through the framework of the house. And here we have a couple pictures of walls. So this top picture is obviously a picture of brick walls. And in this video, or this little GIF down here, you can see someone putting up sheetrock, drywall, and giving the house support with walls. Walls are often hollow, allowing for vital parts of the structure to remain hidden from occupants. So sometimes pipe wiring and insulation and vents can be hidden inside the walls. Those things can sometimes be dangerous. You obviously don't want to be in contact with like wires or vents or insulation. It's sometimes not healthy for you, or you could get hurt if you're exposed to them. Roofing. So roofing can be considered a shell structure. The purpose of roofing is to provide protection from animals and weather. Again, if we didn't have a roof, we would be able to just kind of look up at the sky, and we wouldn't be able to look right through the framework. And we have our GIF of roofing. So here they are putting down some shingles, providing support for the roof and protection from any animals or weather. So you guys can pause, type this in, and describe what's happening to the GIF. Roofing is typically non-permeable. Non-permeable means that it cannot or it does not allow water to travel through it. So we would call this like waterproof. Things that are permeable, like a sponge, is able to hold water. So non-permeable means that it wants to repel water, and a roof we would want to be non-permeable to repel water. And roofing often is slanted on structures that use wood as a frame. This prevents buildup of precipitation, minimizing the live load on a roof. So we talked about how in certain areas of the world, we might see that roofs are designed a certain way to minimize the amount of live load that they are being exposed to. So if you live somewhere that has a lot of precipitation or snowfall, you might see a house built like this with a very large A frame, because it kind of looks like the letter A, so that if it were to snow, the snow would just slide right off the roof. Sometimes we also see in areas of the world that have a lot of snow, like Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, that a lot of roofs are actually made of some type of metal. And we talked about this with thermal energy, that metal will actually cause a phase change and melt the snow so it doesn't build up on the roof and cause a lot of live load on your roof. All right, and those are the 5 parts to a building. If you guys need to go back and rewatch or type in anything that you missed, you guys can do that now, and I will see you guys soon.